It's Tonya with Life with Tonya, and I'm back with another Two Cent Tuesday where I share my thoughts and opinions on trending relationship topics and issues that I came across while strolling around online. And recently we talked about the judgment against baby mamas and how society was talking down on single mothers for being forced with the task of having to raise their children alone. And in talking about that subject, we came across the five different types of men or the five different types of personalities in men to reduce our chance of becoming a baby mama. And so now this week we are talking about how to avoid becoming a baby mama within ourselves. So this is going to cause women to identify our own toxic traits and bad behavior characteristics so that we can avoid hanging around the wrong men for the wrong reasons for a long time. So I'm going to get into my suggestions that I believe can be helpful in avoiding to become a baby mama before your time. And my first suggestion is knowing what you want. And knowing what you want is you simply taking time with a pen, pad, your notepad, your phone, whatever. Just you simply taking time to identify what it is that you want out of your relationship. So whether that's marriage or you don't believe in marriage and you just want a long-term partnership or commitment, or if you're tired of the marriage and relationships altogether, maybe you just want somebody that you can have fun with from time to time. Either way, it's your life and there's no wrong way to live your life. The only goal in being able to know what you want is so that you can quickly detach from men who do not want the same thing that you want. And I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I don't have to go in too much detail about that. But again, knowing what you want causes you to quickly detach from a man who doesn't want the same thing that you want. And my next suggestion is to use your brain and not your body, or use your mind and not your body. And the reason for this is, as many of you know, I wrote a book called I'm Celibate Now What, where I talked about my toxic, trifling relationships and how I use abstinence to heal from those situations to regain my emotional independence or regain my emotional health. So being able to navigate a relationship without allowing your hormones or sexual desires to make the decisions for you, you're able to pay attention to the characteristics of a man without allowing your sexual appetite to get in the way. And I'm sure some of these we already talked about a million times, but there's no harm in talking about it again. So some of the characteristics that we should be paying attention to is whether or not this guy even values fatherhood, especially if he's a child already. Like what type of relationship, not a child already, if he has children already. If this guy has children already, we need to be observing how he interacts or talked about his current children, how often he spends time with those kids. And if he doesn't have children already, then we should definitely be observing, his thoughts and opinions on being a father. And we should observe the relationship that he has with his fathers or the father figure that's in his life. And some of the other characteristics we should be paying attention to is definitely whether or not he's emotionally healthy and mature. Because again, being coupled up with a guy that's not emotionally mature or emotionally stable, it's going to get overwhelming to a point. You're going to get tired of having to emotionally regulate yourself and emotionally regulate him, and you're always trying to save the relationship from crashing and burning, and you're doing more of the chasing while he's just doing more of the drama starting. So again, that's why you want a guy that's emotionally healthy and mature, so that you have more of a partner and you're not being more of a babysitter to a guy who don't know how to emotionally regulate himself. And one of the newest red flags that I've discovered is a guy who over-fantasizes with your looks and your body. These are men who just, there's nothing wrong with being complimented on how beautiful or how nice you look. But if this guy is always over-sexualizing a body part and he's starting to buy you clothes or gadgets because he wants to see how you look in these items, because again, he's fantasizing over your body parts, this is a guy that you need to cut ties with quick, because he is subtly telling you that, hey, I'm just in it for the sex. I like what I like. I like a woman with these type of physical characteristics. And he's just lusting after those things, and that's all he cares about at the time. But the healthy version that we should be paying to is how a guy invests in our personal development and self-care, whether or not he builds our esteem, and just shower us with acts of love and service without over sexualizing our body parts. And my next suggestion is to use birth control and boundaries. And the reason why I believe that this topic is important is because, like I said, I do a lot of scrolling around on social media in my free time. And depending on what the blogs are talking about that day or whatever the discussion is at the moment, you look in the comment section and you'll see where several, women today seem to glorify or glamorize abortions. And being in the different circle of women that I've come across over the years, based on these women who have had to have an abortion for one reason or another, it was not a pretty topic to be discussing. You know what I mean? Like, these women suffered a lot of trauma and personal guilt that they spent years and years in therapy and spiritual help trying to heal through these situations, because for whatever reason they had an abortion for one reason or another. It left a lasting traumatic effect on their mind and their body, and they still was grappling with the grief of trying to deal through that. So the point is, though, this is not me trying to tell you what's right or what's wrong or what you should or should not do. The thing is that there are other methods of birth control that is not so traumatizing to the mind and the body. And if you allow yourself, if you know that you are sexually active, take the time to identify the preferred method of birth control that works for you, so that you are not putting yourself in a situation later on that's going to cause you a lot of emotional grief and trauma. And even if you are practicing abstinence right now at the time, again, when you read my book, if you get a chance to purchase it and reading it, you know that I relapsed in my abstinence and celibacy journey several times. And one of the main reasons is because I wasn't in a place to where I was strong enough in my flesh to resist temptation or to date from a place of emotional maturity myself. So that caused a lot of setbacks and relapses. So if you're not in a place, if you're practicing abstinence and celibacy, you're not in a place where you're as strong as you like to be in your flesh, there's no harm in trying to instill utilizing birth control until you get to that area where you're strong enough in your faith and you are able to date from a place of emotional intelligence and maturity, and you're not out here using sex to manipulate love or secure a relationship. So my next suggestion in how to avoid becoming a baby mama is to not build a family without a foundation. Do not build a family without a foundation. And the reason I suggest this is because I believe that the reason why we have so many baby mamas and baby daddies out here is because we have two perfect strangers who are linking up with each other and the only thing that they're doing is having sex as a form to get to know each other. Like, just a quick little sidebar. One of my favorite shows is Married at First Sight. And if you watch that show, you ever notice how the couple that has sex on the night of their marriage, those relationships most of those relationships, because I think it was one relationship that did stay to marriage and they're still married today. But the majority of the couples that decide to have sex on the first night with this perfect stranger that they married, by the time the series is over, they're ready to divorce their partner. Meanwhile, the Married at First Sight couples who did not have sex on the first night and they took the time to get to know their partner, those marriages were more successful with completing the challenge. So you need to take your time and build a foundation with the guy, and again, not allowing your hormones or your sexual desires to make those decisions for you. Because when you're using sex to establish compatibility with the guy, eventually you're going to come across a little whoopsie daisy, and now you're pregnant. You have an unwanted pregnancy here. And if you've ever been pregnant before, or you've been around pregnant women, then you know that pregnancy changes the dynamic of the relationship. Your mind, body, and soul changes when you're carrying a child. And those type of changes, I believe, only a mature, intelligent man can handle, especially a man that you built a foundation with. But if you just had a unwanted pregnancy by a guy that you barely know, and he was only in it because he was sexually compatible with you and not emotionally or mentally compatible with you, again, this guy is going to be gone. He's going to leave you for dead. He's not going to care about trying to nurture you through this pregnancy or provide for you and the child. So that is why it's important to build a foundation with the guy first, so that we're not in the situations where we are having to raise children alone and so on and so forth. And that brought me to my next suggestion, which is to delay intimacy until commitment. So of course we all know that abstinence and celibacy is the best way to go. Even when I was out there doing what I was doing, I still know that abstinence and celibacy was the best way to go. Because what happens is you come across these guys. Remember one of the guys that we talked about in our 5 types of personality traits to avoid? We come across men who are always half in and half out another relationship. You know, his wife don't want to sign the papers, or he's invested, he's emotionally tied to another woman for whatever reason. They got to wait until they sell the house and sell the cars and divide up all the property and assets and things like that. It prevents us from having sex with guys like these, and now we're in a physical relationship with a guy that has all this emotional baggage going on. And he's out here building several different relationships on the foundation of deceit. You know, this person don't want to sign the papers, or I'm still living with my baby mama over here because I'm helping her care for the children. Yada, yada, yada. You know, we already share a bunch of discussions on that. But this is why it's important to delay intimacy until a commitment is formed. You know, even if you choose to practice sex within your relationship, again, delay intimacy until a commitment is formed, and so that you can avoid all of these half-type relationships where the guy is not fully committed to you. He's just in it to see where it goes and have a good time. So that's my thoughts on that. And my last suggestion is to do not compare timelines. Comparing timelines, it kind of goes back into that mean girl energy that we talked about before. You know, comparing your timeline to someone else, it brings about a lot of anxiety and depression and comparison with each other. And we all know that comparison is a thief of joy. And what I also learned is that when you compare your life to other people's lives, it disrespects the plan that God has for you. Because single women, we have to get to the point to know that it is not a punishment to be single. You know, God has our plan already designed out, mapped out for us, and somebody else's plan is already designed and mapped out for them. So it's not a punishment to be single. And I think, you know, toxic women, they kind of started that trend that, oh, if you're not married, then clearly something is wrong with you, or if you're not married, then that means you're crazy, or whatever. You know, that's opinions coming from a toxic married woman. But nevertheless, comparing is a thief of joy, and it's going to disrespect God's plan for you, and you're going to be spending your single season miserable and blocking all of your blessings that are supposed to be coming to you in the first place. But I want to wrap this up by emphasizing that being a baby mama is not a bad title. You are a mother, but having to unintentionally parent a child alone or before your time, it can cause some resentment and definitely the financial stress and struggles. But at the same time, it's not something that's impossible to overcome. You know, current moms, you continue to do amazing things with raising your current children. And if you decide to have more children within the confinements of marriage, then I hope some of these tips and suggestions work in your favor so that you can plan the life that you want and have your next set of children within marriage. And if you are single, then I believe that we should be focused on our financial goals so that we're not allowing our finances to bring us into the arms of a toxic man. So here's your chance to participate and let us know other ways to avoid becoming a baby mama. Share this with your girlfriends or your young adult daughters. And subscribe, comment, and like, and see what we talk about next time.